you have to give up control. And we were talking about that. And I said, I don't know. I don't agree with that because I think we never had control. So you can't give up something that you don't have. You have to give up the illusion of control. I don't try to anticipate. I just try to be prepared.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ed McGill, co-founder and partner of McGill Jungie Wealth Management, as well as the host of the podcast Led Leadership with Ed. We're in our second year and gaining followers left and right. So thank you for all of you that join us on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Continue to like, share, and comment because that just helps all the metrics and drive things. And as always, just remember, we're going to be dropping new episodes every other Wednesday, bright and early. Today, we have a good friend of mine and a special leader, Scott Peterson, who's CEO of Interstates. Uh, this company is actually over 1,700 employees over multiple states. They've had a little over 500 million of revenue last year, and Scott and the team are leading them to 600 million plus this year. So we're going to learn a lot about leadership from Scott today as I really continue my journey to help others as well as help myself on this. So welcome to LED, Scott.
I appreciate the invitation and looking forward to today. It should be good.
I'm hoping so, and if not, they'll just edit me out, and we'll be all right, good to go on that side. So we're going to start right into the questions because the first thing saw you had talked about this. It's talked about leaders operating from either love or fear, and how a leader can actually recognize when they slipped into fear-based leadership. So why don't we just start right into it, and we'll add in stuff about interstates as we go along, some of those lessons learned, etc. But let's start there.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've been looking at for a number of years. And what we want to do is create an environment where people can reach their potential and be servant leaders and encourage people to be servant leaders. And as we were leaning into this, one of the things that I started noticing and other people started noticing too is that if you're leading out of fear, you're trying to prevent things from happening. You actually get pretty almost physically tight, and it's hard to think creative from that. So I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. I got to do this. I don't want this. So it's all almost negative based. And then leading out of love, it's really for a greater cause. You're trying to help someone. You're trying to serve a client. You're trying to build something up. You're trying to improve something. So if you can lead out of love, you're going to actually have a bigger impact, a more positive impact, and it's actually more enjoyable too because that's you're just more creative. You can relax and be yourself a little bit more. And what I've noticed, and I think it's a continuum. It's not a switch that you flip
Yeah.
on or off. It's a whole continuum. So if you can get to more of the instead of being 90% in fear or 60%, if you can drive that down to 30% and 70% with love, that would be I think you'll find your impact is better. You're going to connect with people. But a couple signals that are, if you're on the fear side of it, is if you're really uh, worried about something and everything, you're kind of describing a negative vision of where you want to go. That's a signal from it. For me, from a disc profile, I'm a high D and a high I. So when a high D gets stressed out, they want to take more control. They're more focused on the task, not necessarily the people. So when I see that coming out of me, then I know that I have to slow down, get a little more curious, get in what we call kind of a sweet spot, so you can be curious and calm, and then that will really actually help the juices flow in your mind and creativity, and you can start building towards that love and think about how you can impact. What would be an ideal thing? What would be a huge win for the organization that could take them to the next level, or a team member could accomplish something they've never accomplished before, so that it's just a frame of mind just to make sure that you can change one filter off for another one. But it you can slip into it pretty fast, and it takes a little time to get used to it, identifying it and switching it on. But I've it's really helped me impact on it. And probably one additional thing, and I got this from a book called The Gap and the Gain. And when you're everybody has a baseline of where they're at, and they have aspirations of where they want to be, way up here. And if you
Yep.
think about what you've accomplished the past 6 months, look at all the gain you've had. But if you look at where you want to be, you didn't quite get there, you're going to live in that anxiety. You're going to live in that stress. And stress isn't necessarily bad, but if that anxiety and that fear is living in the gap, in the gain, you can have say, I got this gap. I have to lean into it. But look what we've already accomplished. That's amazing. So you get to celebrate the wins a little bit more and be a little more positive, and that sets you up better long term, I think.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned the disc because I am also a high D and high I. And what Scott said there, when we feel, that stress, it can be fear or it's just like, I got to get this done. I can do it. I'll just take it over. You pull everything back. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But it would encourage everyone, whether it be DISC, whether it be Culture Index, The Six Working Geniuses by Pat Lencioni is awesome too. There's so many different profiles. And so understanding your profile as well as when you may be overstepping or getting into some areas that probably won't be good, great for the company. And when Scott mentioned love, that's also what John Gordon said is the number one criteria for positive leadership when people know that you love and care about them. So I'm glad you went there. I would be curious for you. I found it interesting. I thought you were going to say, you got to go 100% to love. You said, no, let's just work on driving the fear part down. There's probably always going to be some that's actually can be healthy. So you're just not, hey, I love you, let's go. And you go off a cliff with the company, that there still has to be some of those radars and things. But you were talking about just driving it down to manageable and then focus more on the love part. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I'm not sure fear is 100%, could be beneficial. I think some healthy skepticism and being realistic is good. The fear that is the emotion. I mean, I think we're humans and we're going to be broken and we're going to have fear base. I mean, as soon as a tough situation happens, it gets back to, what is you got to fight or flight. That's a
Mhm.
basic human emotion. So when you're in fear, you're going to either, if your tendency is to fight, you're going to fight. If it's to flee, you're going to avoid and all that. And I think it's human nature. So I think it's unrealistic to say that we're going to eliminate it all the way. But I think it's important for us to work on it, though.
No, that's good. And maybe we'll just hop to that because, you know, you've been CEO, I think, for about 12 years. Is that correct?
Yep.
And you and the team have seen tremendous growth. Like, where was the numbers when you took over? And I know you're so good about highlighting others and the whole team, but to give the clients listening here some baseline, what was the revenue and number of employees 12 years ago, if you can remember that? And we said you're about 1,700 now, I think, and on your way to 600. What did it look like 12 years ago? And then I'll ask you a tougher question off of that. How's that?
I'll overdo. I'll go back to 95. I started in 95, so I've been with the company for about 30 years. We were about 12 million at that time, 140 people. Now, when I took over, we were about 100 million, and we were about 700, 800 people. Now we're on pace to be about almost 600 million this next fiscal year, and we'll be pretty close to 1,800 people by the end of the fiscal year. We have aspirations. We just finished Interstates 2030. Kind of have a 5-year vision that we're working towards, and we're hoping to be around 1.2 or 1.3 billion dollars with about 25 to 2,800 people. So that's our target from that. That's important, but that's not necessarily. It's how you grow and why you grow is more important than the actual numbers. But the numbers give context. It gives you ability to stay in sync and be aligned with each other, though.
No, and that's good then. So, but you went through a period where you lost a major leader, you lost a major contract. There was an economic downturn kind of all at once because you said, that some of your natural styles may come out more during times of stress or when things are harder. Talk about one of those really hard times, what it feel like, and then how'd you have to just calm yourself down, bring yourself down, and what were the kind of big decisions that the leadership team made?
Yeah, well, I've been here for 3 decades, and I've kind of been part of three different leadership teams. So we had the early group, and then the middle group, and then the current group. Uh, the transition from the first group to the second group was in around 99 to 2001. We had a major shareholder retire. Then our CEO, Jim Franken, passed away at 48. So we had to do a ownership
Oh,
and
wow.
leadership transition in that time frame. And in that, it was also the dot com bust. So we had a recession that we had to deal with, and then our best client got purchased, and they pulled the contract from us. So it was a rough 10 months, and part of it is going through it. A few things that we learned along the way that we wouldn't have. Uh, didn't know that before going through that crisis is when you're going through a tough time, it's important to be authentic. It's important to be real. It's supposed to, you hear a lot of people saying you got to be positive in the tough times. I think you have to, that's true, but you also have to be real. Hey, this
Mhm.
is tough. This is gonna take a while. This is what we're working on. And what we learned to focus on is it's important to be calm and confident when you're talking about that. You have to have confidence and you have to be calm. You can't get worked up too much because your team is going to amplify whatever you bring. So if you're a little bit panicky, they're going to be a lot panicky. If they're a little bit confused, they're going to be way more confused. So you have to stay grounded in that and just have confidence that you will figure it out. The team will figure it out. We'll rise to the occasion, and don't. It's okay not to have the answers right away. Sometimes answers take a little longer, and you have to work a little bit. So don't be in a rush to get through things, and that's where that calm and confident comes into play.
How did that shape you? Because at that time, so on the second transition, you would have been on the leadership team, but you weren't the CEO when all this was happening.
Right.
How did
I
all that shape you? Did you see great examples of leadership? Some where, without naming names, but yeah, probably wouldn't have done that or things like that. But how did that shape you at the time?
It was so I was in my early 30s. I was CFO for 18 years before CEO. So I was CFO before the first group, and the second group I was. And the one thing we kind of purposely made a choice of in a tough time, we got to stand with each other and by each other and support each other. So we got we had to bring the last 10% to make sure that we're talking about the real issues. We wanted to make sure that our individual and team dynamics were strong. We couldn't afford to have sidetracks going on at that time. And it's and work one thing at a time. A lot of times we try to jump to a quick solution, and some of the tough problems take, sometimes bigger and more robust solutions, and you're really not in control. And even if though you wish you were, or may it seem like you are, but I've always I've always been a enjoyed teams and wanted to be about on a team. I'd rather do stuff as a team as opposed to just individually. So for me, I was very blessed in all the three major um, senior teams that I've been on, that we've had great people around us to support each other. But in tough times, some people say character is built. Sometimes people say character is revealed. I think in tough times, you have an opportunity to make a big difference and show up the way you want to show up. But it's a choice, and you got to make sure you lean in the way you want to be, and you show up the way you want to show up. And sometimes that's a little easier, and sometimes that's really hard.
Well, and you guys have made this conscious decision to, avoid kind of the craze right now, which is private equity. And actually, that probably is one of the main phone calls you get each week is people call, and especially when they see how well you're doing. And at one point, you realize that the constraints at Interstates was not clients or revenue. It was really leadership. Do we, or when I say constraints, it was like, how do we keep building the next generation of leadership? And was there a time frame in your tenure where you're like, boy, we don't necessarily have the right bench strength? It gets harder to create enough leaders as you get larger too. And even though you said you're in X number of states, and you eventually will have the 2,700 employees. There is a good kind of chunk of them right there in that Iowa area, which isn't always the easiest to always have a huge amount of talent to choose from. Tell us a little bit about realizing, hey, revenues and clients are going to be coming, but do we have the capability to build the leadership team to service them?
Yeah, the first group, I when uh, Jim Franken took over from his dad in '95. That's one of the things he wanted to do is have more leadership. And as we were growing that team in the late '90s, we basically said that our biggest constraint is the number of leaders that we had. So we started. The
Hmm.
first thing we ever did is we took all the office people at the time through the 21 Laws of Leadership with John Maxwell. So we took 21 weeks and we watched this will date me a little bit, but a VHS tape of John talking about
VHS.
that.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. So we had to
Yep.
rewind it every time and get it to the right spot. And then in 2002 and three, we decided to take it up a notch. So one of the things we did is we launched a program called Excellence in Leadership, EIL, and we launched that as a way to help produce more leaders. And we talked about how to set direction, how to find your leader's voice, try to be authentic, making sure that you can reach your potential. We did a lot on self awareness, how to lead teams, how to lead organizations. And we've been running that program ever since. So we've been running that for uh, 23 years, and we've had hundreds of people go through it. We run it right now. We run it twice a year from that side of it. The cool thing about it is we're it does make a big difference in growing leaders, but it actually has as big effect on our culture, and that was never the intent, but it's kind of grew into that. We noticed that it helps new leaders, understand their responsibility, their opportunity to help form and keep the culture a certain way or improve it as time goes on.
So what's interesting there is the amount of emphasis, if you are going to stay privately owned, is you have to put a ton of resources into developing those leaders. And you said you're seeing it now in the culture. When did you notice the culture start changing where it wasn't the culture of the leadership team, but of, you know, that it was owned by the whole team, the whole company, on that side? And what did you guys have to let go to let it permeate all the way down?
Uh, well, I'm not sure if we had to let anything go. It was pretty interesting. In '96, we kind of launched our values of building relationships through dependability, integrity, and trust. In '05, we needed a little more direction for people. We said that's understanding needs, delivering results. But when we watched the Simon Sinek video back in 12, we thought that is the missing part of the
Hmm.
the culture. So what it took us a long time. It took us 9 months to come up, and we have three why statements. It's providing opportunities for our people, making a difference with our clients and communities, and pursuing a better way. And when we started rolling that out within EIL and outside of that, it was, I call it the tipping point. That was the difference that once we launched those and people we started talking about that, the team talks about culture probably as much or more than I do. I still do, and I still enjoy doing it. And I think it's my responsibility. I think it's really really important. But it is truly owned by all the employees of Interstates, not just the leader team. And that was the tipping point for me when I saw that come to fruition.
Well, I hope everyone saw how all the cultures and values and missions and all the different things just kind of rolled off of Scott's tongue there, because a lot of times people say, yeah, we got our mission statement. And you're like, well, what is it? And they're like, well, hang on a sec. Let me go to the front lobby and pull it off the wall there. So it does sound like you guys are really believing in that. When you think of who gets to go through EIL, because we have a lot of listeners on here that may be up and coming leaders, who identified you as a leader? What was the traits you were exhibiting? And for you, what are you looking for? Or what's your team looking for now to invite someone in to the EIL?
Um, well, to invite, I'll answer the second question first, but they have to get nominated by their supervisor or someone else they work with and say, I think this person would be really benefit from that. So each class has 18 people. So we run that twice a year. So that's 36 people. And we have probably 100 people on the waiting list wanting to go
Oh,
through
wow.
that. And it's been like that for a while. And at times it'd be nice to be lower than that, but it seems to work. And we're looking at adding additional programs to give people earlier on some support from that. But it's really a lot of times there's two. A lot of times, some people can see leadership in themselves. Other times, someone else identifies them a leader, even though they didn't identify themselves as a leader. So when we can encourage people to see their potential, or at least lean into their potential, so they can more discover their strengths, discover what they can really make have an impact. For me, one of the things that always stood out with me was I was in Boy Scouts, and so there was a couple of grades ahead of me and a couple below me, and then we had to do uh, leaders of the troop or of the pack, and I got
Yep.
nominated, and I was actually nominated with the people that were older than me, and that surprised me, and I'm not sure exactly what they saw in me, but for some reason they thought that I would be a good leader of that. So I remember being identified. I was surprised, but I was excited about it, and so sometimes it's just how you show up. And a great leader is also a great follower. At times you have to lead by yourself. Sometimes you have to lead in front, by the side, or behind. But if someone else has an opportunity to lead, you have to give them space also, so that they can try different things, out, and see how they can grow as a leader too. So I think it can happen a lot of different times, and you just never know. Sometimes people never had that opportunity, and they don't blossom until later on in life too.
Have you found as you maybe and maybe you don't when I say track everyone that's gone through there, because you said, some people see themselves as a leader and then others are, "Oh, wow, that's really my supervisor said that." Does one of those 2 groups tend to do better going forward? I mean, the ones that didn't see themselves probably have a degree of being humble, which is a huge characteristic of being a leader, and maybe someone that says, "Well, of course I should be in here," et cetera. But are you seeing a difference as they go through it?
Uh, no, I hadn't thought about it from that perspective before. I don't think so, though. Actually, I think what when I'm going through, when I'm because I try to hit 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 3 sessions, just because I think it's important for. We teach it ourselves, so we want leaders of interstates to teach future leaders of interstates what it means to lead at our company. So when I look at it as if they're curious, and if they want to learn. It's if you get hung up on wanting to be right, or proving that you look good, or how good you are, you're never going to be in that teachable moment. And you got to embrace that stuff when you don't know exactly how to do it. That's when the growth happens. So you can tell on if they're trying to perform at a high level, or are they trying to perform at a high level and learn. There is a difference that you can
Yeah.
see pretty easily.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. Yeah. Perform at a high level and learn. Did when you were up and coming, did you have to be a grinder to kind of move up there at Interstates? How were you working, going above and beyond? Is that one of the characteristics, or is it with the culture there? It's like, no, we want to be as efficient as possible in this 40 hours, because I know how much Interstates values family and time, and all the people up there I've met have young kids and involved in the community. Tell me a little bit about work ethic and some of those things that maybe were more common previously.
Grind probably has a couple different versions of it, good and bad, and
Yeah.
sometimes I think everybody has to grind to some degree, and I think I did that. But when I see other people uh, having more opportunities and growing as a leader, a lot of it is, and this goes. all the way back in high school and college. I was in a restaurant and doing different things, and I supervised some, waiters and waitresses and night shift manager. And someone asked me what makes a great waitress or a waiter, and I thought about it. I said, actually, if you can actually see and do work, that's huge. So, and I think that still comes out today, is if you show up and just do your job, that's great, that's good. That's not going to get you the next level. You got to be able to see what needs to happen that isn't happening. You got to be able to anticipate. If you only do the work that's given, a lot of people can do that. But if you want to make a difference and be the leader you want and get different opportunities, I think you have to see different opportunities and then lean into that and do things that you may not technically be qualified to do, but you're making a difference and you're advancing the ball. So that see and do work is that you're just noticing stuff that's not getting done right or could be done at a higher level. And if you can do that, that goes a long ways.
God, that's actually really good. And when you said, if you do what's given to you, that's good. And it made me think of the book Good to Great, or, also John Gordon talks about not letting good get in the way of being great. And there were some things that you had to kill that were actually working well for the company. And you said, yeah, but to get to where we need to go, we need to actually kill that and start doing this. Does that make sense? Is that common for the growth that you've had to stop doing some of the things, or what are some of the examples of, maybe stopping something that was good, could have been very easy just to keep going down that path, but you said, nope, to get to great, we got to move over here.
Yeah, we probably don't do it as much as we should, because their point is awesome, is that you have to almost trim the tree in order to have it really flourish. And we do some of that, and I think we do a pretty good job, but we could always do a little bit better. When you've been at a company long enough, you see multiple cycles. So when I first started, we were one company. And what we wanted to is grow in different areas. So we started doing a BU structure in the late 90s. And so we had a construction arm, a engineering arm, and an automation arm, and that worked really well. We had that for 18 years. Towards the end, one of the things that we were noticing is that a lot of our clients were saying at times we're hard to work with, at times we're difficult to work with, at times we're almost competing with each other with over scope and all that. So we became a little bit bureaucratic. And so in 2018, and then we launched in 2019, we went back to one company, mainly because we wanted to be more focused on our clients. We want to be more focused on our the markets that we serve. We thought we could be more agile being one company versus three companies. And we still have, we have offer categories that have different focuses, but it's really allowing us to wrap our arms around our clients and look for those trends where we can really make the difference. So, but when we switch from the business unit structure to the agile or the helix structure, there was a lot of resistance, and a lot of
Yeah, I was
times.
going to ask how you got buy-in because you
Yeah.
had people that were in charge of each of those three units going, I kind of like my unit.
And there's a lot of leap of faith that it took a little while to get there. People react differently, and but
Hmm.
you have to have dialogue. You have to give them space to process those things, and you have to be have enough confidence or enough courage to let them give you delta feedback. Let them give you the negative stuff. Let them process it with you, not in a way. And a lot of times we took that information and it helped us improve what we were going to, what we were moving towards. So I like old sayings because they're usually they've been around for a while because there's some truth. So it's in that situation you gotta stay humble, or you're gonna get humbled. And if you don't anticipate or get feedback from people, whether it's clients, partners, or vendors, or your team, you're never going to reach your potential, because you're going to think you got to figure it out. As soon as you think you got to figure it out, you're going to get nailed by something that you had a blind spot and you messed up. So in that thing, I had a couple people are saying that, are you going to this could destroy interstates. And I go, well, I guess that's not the intent, but that was a possibility, because when you're making bigger changes, you have a hypothesis it's going to work out, but you don't know for sure. But we were committed as a team, and worked through a lot of difficult structure changes, and a lot of leaders handled it exceptionally well, willing to give up what they had in order for them to move on to something else, or for the company to move on. We did lose a
Was
couple
there any of
leaders.
them
So
that's what I was going to ask you. Did we lose some that just say I just didn't buy in, and did they hang around? But it doesn't
yeah.
sound like they did.
Well, they hung around for a little while, and then they ended up finally leaving, and it was best for everyone. Good for them, good for us. And it's sad to do that, but in order to go through a door, you got to open up a door and you got to walk through it. So it's a transition, and some people can make it and some people can't, and you just have to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons and doing it the right way, and give them the opportunity to opt in. But if they choose not to, it's okay. You can't take it personally, and you just wish them well, and then you move on.
Was that also part of the time frame where, everyone can get pigeonholed? And I know you know quite a bit about, our McGill Jungie and what we're doing, nationally, and any company can get pigeonholed into certain areas that they only do this. And you and I talked about, Interstates being viewed at times as, a construction company. And then the message is like, no, we're so much more than that. How when what did you have to let go of? And it sounds like maybe these three business units, because people who work with just one of the business units might have thought, well, they're this type of company or this company. But tell us about this transition to make it easier for the client to say what you are now, and were there other things that had to be let go?
We were just talking with a newer leader at the company. He's been with us for a number of years, but we're growing a manufacturing arm just to help with offsite construction, so we can make a bigger difference with our clients with the schedule. And he asked the question, and he's coming up through the construction arm, and he said, so are we going to stay electrical contractor? Or are we going to be turn into a manufacturer? And I kind of looked at him and said, well, technically, we're we haven't been just an electrical contractor for decades. And because we have engineering, we have automation, we have manufacturing, we have all these different things. And as the dialogue went on, or the conversation went on, what we talked about is, we've at times put a lot of our identity on what we do. Now, it's good for us to have pride in what we do. It's good to be trying to be as impactful, or as technically sound as what we do. But for our identity beyond what we do, you got to be a little bit careful, because then that becomes your whole thing, and then you almost rationalize and want to do just that. And if to be a servant leader, to be great at customer service, to lean in and take care of my customers or your customers, you got to look at what they need, and then provide the products, the services, in order to help them problem solve or be more successful. Because that's why we're here, is just to help our clients be more successful. That's why they hire us, sometime on projects, sometime on automation, sometime on with offsite construction, sometimes with construction, just engineering. So there's a lot of things we can do. But and some of this is, I got when we've been leaning in a little bit more about retirement, and you've had a couple of consultants come in and talk about retirement. And if your identity is you, and as you retire, and that transition can be exceptionally difficult. And I think it's early on, what we're trying to do is get people to have their identity as a person, and then their identity as a professional. Now, it will never be 100% separate, but if you can do that, you'll actually accept feedback better. You'll be more
Hmm.
calm and confident about where you can go, because if you came up as engineer, that doesn't you can add value as a project manager, even though you're an engineer. You don't have to be the best engineer to reach your potential. You may be, but you could do something else. So it gives you more flexibility,
Yeah.
creates more opportunities, and it creates more security. And then in tough times, that security and that confidence, it helps you, because if someone says you messed up and that's your identity, that you take that very personal, and that hurts a lot. And it really, the impact can be huge negatively for you.
No, that's interesting. And were you surprised that the person, and this was one of your next generation leaders,
Yep.
a new shareholder, were you surprised that they still kind of identified with just one segment of the company and then kind of process that and go, okay, somewhere along the way, at least for this person, we didn't quite get the message out that we're doing a lot. Or he probably knew, but just, or she knew, but just didn't put it together that no, we're a lot of things to our clients now for our clients.
Yeah. Well, it's there's very few things that surprise me. I don't know if this surprised me or not. A lot of times when I get different information, I try to take it just as a signal. So is it surprising that he thought that? Oh, maybe to some extent, but I thought it's more of a signal that we have to do a better job of talking about who we are and what we do and why we do it and who we're doing it for. So in that's the way I kind of take it. Is it helps? That's probably
Okay.
a
Yeah.
mechanism.
No.
That's the mechanism for me. Is when I get stuff that doesn't go with what I'm hoping for, I just take it as a signal that I got to do something a little bit different to help them connect the dots. It's not their job to connect the dots. It's my job to help them connect the dots.
Yeah, it's their truth. And at one point, you had mentioned about this illusion of control. And so, as a leader, you think you're in control. Talk a little bit about what your uncle told you, and that and really you're not in control. So, talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
So probably in the early 2000s, I was doing quite a bit of work down in Atlanta, and I have an uncle down there, and he was. So I was hanging out with him a little bit more, and I started going to his Bible study, and so they're 20, 30 years older than me, and they're laughing at me because they're all Georgians, and I'm from Iowa and South Dakota, and they're giving me a hard time about how far I commute for this thing. But one of the books we were going through was the Purpose Driven Life, and in the
Oh, Rick
opening
Warren.
set, yep, and in the first
Yeah.
thing is, you have to give up control, and we were talking about that, and I said I don't know, I don't agree with that, because I think we never had control, so you can't give up something that you don't have. You have to give up the illusion of control. And for me, there's very few things that you can control in life. You can control how you respond. You can control what you do. You can't control other people. And this gets back to not many things surprise me anymore, because I've been surprised so much over my life. I've just learned that you can't guess how people are going to react. You just have to be. I don't try to anticipate. I just try to be prepared. One of the things around that time frame, well, it's actually I didn't put it together until it happened before I did the book study, but it kind of clicked afterwards. But one of the first things I had to do in being 20 in my 20s, I had to give people raises, and I remember going up to one person and saying, "Hey, this is." I'm thinking to myself, "This is kind of a not a great. This is a good, not a great raise." And I was anticipating that they were going to be mad at me, and they were happy, they were delighted, they were thankful, and all that. And then it was probably, I think it was the next day, the next morning, I went up to someone else and said, "Hey, here's your raise," and it was like double that of the person before, and they got mad at me and kind
You
of
thought
started
you were going to
yelling
be
at
high. You
me.
thought they were going to be high fiving you, and
Yeah,
instead they're
yeah.
like
So I
PO'd at
go,
you.
yeah, so at that point, that was probably one of my first things. I know that, man, I'll never figure this out. So I got to stop trying to guess where everything is going to go, and just be. I can't control how people feel. I can't control how people react, but I can control how I deliver a message, how I lean in, and that's, if I can do that, that's when I'm leading well. I still, and then it gets back to the love and the fear. If my job is just to provide the message, provide the coaching, how they receive it, it's up to them. If I try to control how they react, that's on the fear base, because I'm trying to get at something really specific, and it's not my decision to do that. They have to decide how they do that.
Yeah, that's interesting, and probably makes those discussions a lot better when you go in with neutrality. And then if they respond poorly, you're like, well, thought it might or it could have gone that way. And if they respond positively, then you're like, great, you're not disappointed either way. You're just coming in neutral on there. That's interesting. That's a great story. You said every disruption is going to create winners and losers. I heard that on one of your podcasts. And then, what are leaders underestimating right now when it comes to AI? You'd mentioned your whole automation section of the company. I have to imagine some of the changes that are coming are going to seriously impact you, your team, your company. When you think of disruptions coming and how you're embracing those and getting your team ready, because there's probably also just some natural fear of, okay, this company's always been here. They always talk about this family orientation, this culture. I mean, I've seen that ingrained in you. But what if I get replaced by this machine or AI or something like that? Hopefully that made some sense. But tell us about the disruptions you see coming in your industry as well as your company, and then how you guys are going to navigate that.
So there's two probably big disruptions coming up. One is the AI disruption. That's going to probably in our industry, I'm guessing it's going to hit anywhere between the next 3 to 6 years. We're a little bit slower to adapt to those type of things. On
The industry as a whole is
the
slower to
industry as
adapt.
a whole, yeah, the industry as a
Yeah.
whole.
Okay.
The other one is the industrialization, and that's manufacturing, offsite construction, and that's hitting now, and I think we're in a good place. We haven't hit a stride yet in that, but so for that one, the reason why that's a disruption is on the electrical side, we're losing probably 10,000 net electricians a year in a 10-year period. And we're several years into that.
Wow.
So in a 10-year period, there's going to be 100,000 less electricians. And there's a lot more work to be done. So in order to get that work done, you're going to have to go off site. And it helps with schedule, it helps with certainty. So there's a lot of benefit from that side of it. So if you can do that well, that creates an opportunity. Work is going to get done differently, and if you can do it differently, that's a differentiator, and then you can stand out in the marketplace. You can make a bigger difference with your clients. So that's how we're approaching that, and I feel pretty good about that. And you can always get better, and we're gonna definitely elevate up a couple times on that disruption. The other disruption is the data technology and AI, and this one is probably more concerning because when we're navigating it, I think there's a lot of hype, a lot of vaporware out there, and I think there's a lot of potential at the same time. So you got to balance this. That we One of the things we don't want to do is just start trying to do AI everywhere, because I think you're going to be hopping around. You're going to be wasting a lot of time, energy, and resources. So for us, what we're really doing is let's focus on the fundamentals. Let's really make sure we're doing certain things well, and then be in a position to when those opportunities come up, we can seize them fairly quickly. And on that, it's getting your data ready. It's making sure you're using standards, and then making sure your workforce is comfortable. Everyone is comfortable with AI and technology, and some are actually excel at it. I think every position is going to be impacted at some level. Everybody is going to Their job is going to morph a little bit one way or another. Some are going to be drastically done. And I think some positions are going to be eliminated long term. One of our why statement is providing opportunities for our people. So we are looking at this is our opportunity to help our people get good with AI, get good with technology, understand how their role could be or should be uh, amplified potentially. Even your job might be 80% the same, it could be 20% the same, but you'll have the opportunity to extend your value proposition, because I think every employee, wherever you're working, you got to figure out how you're going to add value, how you're going to make a difference. That's If you're not thinking that, you're setting yourself up for uh, the disruption could really negatively impact you. And there's always going to be winners and
Yeah.
losers in any change, and if you can be prepared, then you're going to be luck is happens to the prepared. The luck does not happen to the unprepared. And that's because something shows up, but we've worked 10 years to get ready for it. That's why I always get a kick out of hey, this person's an overnight success, and then you hear their story, and they've worked 10 years to try to get there. So I think there's a lot of that. I mean, you weren't in the limelight. You weren't. Nobody noticed all the work you were doing. And I think it was Fraser Ali said that you know champions are made in the gym and recognized in the ring. And I think there's a lot of truth to
Yeah.
that.
And as you were saying that, I thought if I was one of the Interstate team members, how awesome that statement was to say, this is coming. So now we're going to prepare you to make you the best version of yourself. And if for some reason it does eliminate this job, if you understand AI and we can help develop that skill set, there's going to be other roles, for you on that. So I think that's just awesome where to say, hey guys, it's coming. Half of you are going to be gone in a year. It's more, no, it's coming. It's going to allow Interstates to be the best version of itself. It's going to allow each of you to be the best version of yourself. So the way we're going to do that then is the same way I've heard you about developing and all the programs you do for Interstates. You're just saying, no, this is just a new KPI or key performance or OKR, objective and key result, whatever it is that, for us, whenever we invest time, money, development, that section of our business grows. And so you're just saying AI is a section and we'll invest in our people to understand that. So I think that's awesome. When you think, Scott, about you talk about, a to-be list versus a to-do list. When it's really tough times, what's on your to-be list? What are you thinking when you are going through either tough conversations with people or tough company decisions and things made? Tell me how your to-be list looks when there are tough times.
Yeah, the idea of the to be list came out of the CEO Excellence book from McKenzie, and it really resonated with me. Is that um, as a leader, you have a tremendous amount of influence and responsibility for the people you're leading. And the to be list is, how do you want to show up? What do you want to be? And a lot of times, especially for a high D person, yeah, I think when I'm under stress, I could have a tendency to focus on tasks, not people. And if I focus on my people, then then one meeting I might have to show up this way because they need me to show up this way. It's this team needs this person needs that, this client needs this. So the to be list is understanding who you're going to interact with and how can I have the biggest impact and how do I need to show up for the
Hmm.
tough conversations. uh, I have to show up and be. It's maybe counter. It feels sounds odd, but I have to show up in a caring manner because my delta feedback, my tough conversation is really geared to helping them be successful long term. They're struggling right now. If they don't know they're struggling, they'll never get better or be successful. So part of that is I have to show up and not force them to change. I have to help them and get in a teachable moment so that they can understand what the message is, so they have a chance to address it and be successful in the long term. And other times when someone's struggling and someone else is taking care of it, I need to show up and be encouraging. Sometimes it's just listening. One, I do a lot of Q&As ever since I was CEO, and a lot of that is because I want to be available and accessible. And I get some interesting questions. I get some really tough questions. I get some very leading questions, and I do the best I can of answering them because I want them to feel like they're valuable. And if I listen to them and answer their questions, I'm hoping that makes them feel like they belong and that I'm validating them and their ideas or their concerns or their questions by spending time on it.
No, that's awesome. And the last thing, just I'll let you end with, you tell leaders to, not copy others, to find their own voice. But for aspiring leaders here, how long did it take to find your voice? How brutal as a leader were you early on? Say, but no, how long did it take you to find your voice without giving the canned answer of like, well, I'm still, everyone's still developing their voice. But when you felt more comfortable as a leader, was there just a timing, something that happened where you said, okay, I still have a lot of room to grow, but I'm starting to feel better about my own voice.
I'll get that in a roundabout way. So hang in there with me. I got this. I got a similar question. So we do Q&A within EIL or Excellence in Leadership, and they asked me, what do you know, wish you knew then versus now, and I said, well,
Yep.
one of the things I noticed early on, and I noticed this back in when I was in high school, is when you're in eighth grade, you think you're king of the mountain. You go to freshman in high school, and you just are at the bottom. So you go from the peak to the bottom. You do that senior in high school, you think you're everything, and then with some, and then you go freshman in college, and you're just trying to find the bathroom in the classroom. And then you go to your first job, your second job, and then and I said, now it's in decades. I look back, and I noticed this early on is, I'm looking back in my 30s, I look at my 20s, and man, I was an idiot back then. And then I'm looking at my 40s with my 30s. Oh, I was an idiot right now. And now, I'm at the end of I'm 59 right now. So I'm at my end of my 50s. And I'm thinking, well, in a couple of years when I'm in the 60s, I'm going to say what an idiot I was in my 50s. And so, part of it is for me, I think it's a little bit of everybody goes through this. When you're in the 20s, you're trying to prove it a lot, and you're trying to prove it on the technical side. And I think
Yeah.
yeah, one of the things I'd probably encourage people to do, I wish I would have known this earlier, is focus on doing the right thing, focus on building relationships and network, and be comfortable with yourself.
Mm.
It comes from Aristotle, but the greatest victory is victory over self. We are our worst enemies. Our negative talk, our we overthink, we are defensive. Most of our problems are self-inflicted, unfortunately.
Self-inflicted. Yep.
And if we could just get comfortable, and hey, I messed up. Yep, that was a dumb move, but that's adds to the list, but I can learn from it. I would just, if people can get comfortable, and that's why we focus on site safety. That's why we focus on helping people in the IL. We ask them to create their why statement or their mission statement, because I think that gives them identity, it gives them direction, it gives them a solid foundation that they can handle a lot of different things. And if you're going to validate, you want validation on what you do, that's going to go up and down all the time. If you can get validation from yourself on who you are, who you want to be, and who you will be, or who you strive to be, that is resilience. That is stuff that's powerful, that will allow you to do different things in your whole life that you never thought you would do. But that's the probably the for us, when we want them to find their voice, the only way you can reach your potential as a leader is to be yourself. You can take techniques from other people, but if you want to reach your potential, you have to be yourself. Leverage your strengths, mitigate your weaknesses, and lean on the team members around you to help you out. And if you can ask for help and be coachable, that's when you're really going to grow.
God, that is awesome to uh, just to hear and learn. And the reason why I was smiling as you're talking about, in my 50s, I'll look back at, or when you're in your 60s, my 50, God, I was stupid there. I'll tell you something funny about our team. There's another book out there called Rocket Fuel, where you're either a visionary, or an implementer. And I definitely fall on the visionary side. But the other day, one of our team members said it came out about the Ed rule. I'm like, what is the Ed rule? And person goes, well, everyone knows the Ed rule. And I go, I don't. What is it? They're like, well, if you say something one time, we just ignore it. If you say it the second time, an idea in your head, then we're like, hey, we better take notice of that. The third time means it's on his mind and we better figure out how we're going to implement that. I'm like, so I went around to everyone else, Scott. I'm like, did you know about the Ed rule? And like, oh yeah, that 3 times rule. And I was like,
Wow, that's pretty good.
yeah, that was pretty good. I'm like, well, at least I had a rule named after me. It doesn't maybe isn't probably the best rule on that, but I just thought that was kind of funny when you said you learn. And now I said, well, now that I know it, I'll just say it 3 times in the same day. And they're like, no, they will create a different rule for you instead. So
Yeah,
I, I
that's
think
your
we're all learning.
yeah. This is it can be scary times, but if you're around great people, if you're hanging out with, if your team has a lot of great people, and you're on a good, your trajectory with your company, and have confidence in that, life is supposed to be enjoyed. And I think that's gets back to leading out love and fear. And you got to laugh at yourself. You know, there's so many things that are negative in the world, but there's also so many amazing things in the world. And I think that positivity, and this gets back to your to be list, is we have the opportunity to positively impact people. And for me, that's a great opportunity and a responsibility, and I get a lot of joy out of that too.
That's awesome. And that's a great way to end. I appreciate everyone again for joining in this episode. Make sure you like, share, comment again as we just keep, building our base of listeners, and hopefully these things are not only helping you but inspiring you to be a better leader. So, on behalf of the great Scott Peterson, CEO of Interstates, I'm Ed McGill, host of the podcast Led Leadership with Ed. Scott, thank you very much for being on here. You're excellent. Appreciate you a ton, and thanks everyone.